Welcome back, everyone, to the Manny Perspective. Today, we have a really special guest, Archbishop Miller, here with us today. Archbishop Miller has done so many things in the Catholic Church. He has a great personality, and he is just someone I've always wanted to have on the channel since I started it.
Great to be with you, Enrique. Terrific.
Archbishop Miller is part of the congregation of St. Basil.
I am the Basilians that are at St. Thomas High School and the University of St. Thomas here.
Yes, sir. Basilians do great stuff, and Archbishop is just someone that exemplifies what the values of the Basilians are.
I've been with the Basilians for 60 years exactly.
Wow.
I entered when I was 19.
Today's the anniversary.
Yep. In September,
wow.
It was 60 years of entry, not of first profession.
Okay.
You know, when you take vows, that's when we usually mark time in.
Really?
So I'm at 59. Next year will be 60.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we don't want to waste your guys' time, so we're just going to get straight into the questions. Archbishop, so we obviously know a lot about your life now. It's something that's been documented because of how much stuff you've done. But how was your childhood like? What was the childhood of an archbishop like?
My childhood was a Catholic boy growing up in the 1950s. So it was different from today. We had television a little bit. We had, of course, no internet, no games. I mean, it was, I went to a Catholic school, primary school. And then for secondary school, for high school, the Basilians had just opened a school in Ottawa, Canada, where I grew up. So I went to a Basilian high school, but it was shaped like an L. So the Basilians taught all the boys on one side, and some sisters taught all the girls on the other side. Really? And we shared the gym, not at the same time, and a chapel. But for 4 years of high school, I had a Basilian priest every period except for one. 10th grade English was taught by a layman. So it was a very intensive Basilian education. And then I went on to St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto, which was also run by the Basilians. And then during my time there, I entered the novitiate of the Basilians.
And you think that your decision to go to St. Michael's College was influenced heavily by your going to the primary school?
Yes, mostly by going to the secondary school. Okay. That's what, from the time I was in 9th grade, although I didn't mention it to anybody, when they'd ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would usually say an architect, a teacher, something like that, or a lawyer, I think I would say.
Okay.
But I was kind of thinking about becoming a priest, and I knew that St. Mike's was Basilian, and in fact, I entered from when I was still in college.
Your time at St. Michael's, is that where you discovered your vocation?
Well, I really, in many ways, think I discovered it earlier, but it had to mature. It was, It kind of came out then, and I lived in the residence, the men's residence, and in those days, we would gather at 11 o'clock in one of the common rooms, even if we were kind of in our dressing gowns or pajamas, for night prayers, which I later found out were the same night prayers that the Basilians used.
Really?
But I didn't know that, of course, at the time. And it was quite common for guys who were right beside the church to go to Mass, if not daily, frequently. And I went to my first Basilian ordination in December of 1964. During my first year of college.
Kind of like it was all meant to be.
It was meant to be. I mean, I hope it was meant to be.
I mean, that's
what I counted on, that it was the Lord directing me.
Yeah. What about, you said your vocation, you kind of just told people, I just want to be an architect.
Yeah, no, because I didn't want to say, I think I'm going to be a priest. I didn't really share that. Frankly, I kept it to myself. And I wasn't 100% sure either, but I did have the kind of the inclination or the beginning of a desire, which I think is quite common, actually. And it was very common in the early 1960s when there was a huge boom in seminaries and entry into religious life. I mean, the year I entered the novitiate, there were 8 young men from one of our high schools in the States that entered, just
Really?
from one school. Yeah. So it was, and we were 42 in the novitiate. So it was, we were living in a different time.
Nowadays, I feel like we always hear that the seminaries are kind of sinking a little bit.
Well, they were sinking for a while. Now, apparently, there's a little bit of an uptick.
Okay.
And in this archdiocese, there's a pretty good number of seminarians. I see the poster that has all their pictures on it, which is, we did that in Vancouver too.
Really?
Mhm.
So I'm sure there's maybe some teen, a boy, girl, watching this right now that maybe they have that thought in their head.
They have the thought in their head, and I think what you do is you keep the thought and you pray about it and just ask that when the time comes that you will act on it. Because nowadays there's a little bit of fear kind of among young people to commit themselves. When you go to the seminary, they don't ordain you the day you go in. It takes about 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have 100% clarity in your mind. You have to have a pretty good idea, of course.
Okay.
And lots of people are there to help you discern.
Right.
And at the end, of course, the vocation is given to you when you're ordained. That's when it really happens. Before that, you're just a candidate.
Mm. How do you think that those teens should go on about telling? I feel like nowadays there's a little bit of resistance because, you could be an architect, you could be an engineer.
Well, you could be lots of things. And,
right.
And that's true. You can be lots of things, but you can't be everything.
Right.
You do have to choose one thing, which means you don't choose other things. And that's the same way getting married. You choose one woman. That means you don't choose others.
Right.
And so I think it's the whole notion of being ready for a commitment. We've got to kind of have enough sense of ourselves and that the Lord is leading us. If we want to do his will, that'll be the right one.
Right.
And sure, we leave good things behind because there's not just one thing that we can do. It's just like there's not one profession you could do. There's not just one woman a person could marry. There are many, but at the end of the day, there is the one. It's the same, I think, for priesthood. You feel drawn, and the seminary is more than just trying it out. It's you think that that's the right place to be, but it's not the final moment.
And that's a big commitment to make. It's
a big commitment to make because you have to leave behind some other things, dating life changes, for example. And that's a big decision. You have to be ready to make that. If you're not ready to make that, it's a sign not quite. Things aren't mature enough.
Yeah. I don't want to stray off too much, but
you're the one calling the shots.
I've always thought about, why can't priests get married?
Well, I think it's one of the reasons, of course, is some priests do get married. The tradition of the Eastern Church, the Eastern Catholic Church, is married clergy, and there are some that have been members of certain non-Catholic communities, and they were ministers when they are received into the Catholic Church. They can be ordained with and have wives. But the general discipline of the Western Church, or the Latin Church, to which most of us belong here in the United States, is celibacy, so that the priest could, in fact, dedicate himself full-time to the work of the kingdom. It's a little bit like we use, by analogy, the notion of it's like being married to the church.
Yeah.
For bishops, that imagery is very strong. I have a ring. You get a ring when you're made a bishop, which is a sign that you are married to the church that has been entrusted to you, the particular diocese. We don't do that for priests, but it's kind of still works by analogy that this is your one principal concern. Obviously, it's not absolutely necessary. Otherwise, there would be no priest.
Right.
But it is the strong tradition of the Latin rite the so-called Roman Rite, and there are no real indications that it will change for our rite.
Oh, okay. I mean, because the way I've always thought about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always thought about it as I don't see the marriage there being the sin. I see the vows you take and you still choose to have a spouse. I see that being the sin.
Uh-huh.
What would you say to that? Or do you like I see like if the priest getting married,
Right.
and they take no vows to no marriage or celibacy,
Right.
that is not something wrong. But if the priest take his vows not to marry,
Right.
and they marry, that's where it becomes wrong, because you're in
That's
Okay.
that's really wrong, because you've
Okay.
broken a promise, like any promise.
Right, okay.
Yeah, for sure. No,
Okay.
you're right.
And straying back onto
Okay.
the
You're directing, Manrique. You're the one in charge here.
I just a lot of people have questions about why can't priests get married, so I just want to touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
But what, obviously being a priest is a big commitment. What about
No, but so is marriage.
marriages too?
Marriage is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. You marry one person for life. And in both instances, we surrender a future which is unknown.
Right. And something else that's a big commitment is what order you choose.
Yes.
What do you think made you choose the Basilians?
I chose the Basilians because I knew the Basilians. It's usually by association with individuals. And so from the time I was 13 to 16, I was with Basilians all day.
Really?
Well, because they were all my teachers.
Yeah.
From the opening, only 1 year, one period, did I have someone who wasn't a Basilian. So I knew the Basilians, and they were, I didn't know Dominicans or Jesuits or Franciscans. I knew about them, but I didn't know them personally. And St. Mike's Basilian, it just made sense for me. And I liked what the Basilians did. That I like the idea of teaching. And that's the Basilians, principal work, not the only work, but it's the principal work. And so it fit. I imagine if I'd gone to a Jesuit school, I might have become a Jesuit, but I didn't. God put me in a Basilian school.
Right. And the big teaching part, do you think that's something that really inclined you to the Basilians?
Yes, it sure did.
Okay.
Because I was never particularly inclined to be a diocesan priest. The way I framed it in my mind was, I want to be a Basilian. And I knew that they were priests and that they were teachers. And so I didn't sort of dice it out precisely. I remember there was a big poster on the stairwell of the school, the boys section, and it said, long hours, hard work, no pay, be a Basilian. And that appealed to me.
Really?
Yep. That it was going to be challenging. This was not going to be cushy, and particularly if you're a young man, you're at the bottom of things, you're attracted to doing something that is challenging. That's why guys like sports and hearts, ultimately not attracted to cushy things.
Right.
That might happen later, but when we're young, we have that enthusiasm and zeal. Otherwise, why do guys go to the Marines?
Right. And it's interesting to see how you could really see God in your life, how you were inclined to teaching. And then for the viewers that don't know, you actually worked with JP2.
Yes, I did.
Can you expand a little bit on that and how teaching?
Sure. I mean, and we see, I saw God. I mean, I had the inclination and the desire, which I kind of knew came from the Lord. At one stage of my life, I did have it was a privilege to be able to work at the Vatican. I had been here at the University of St. Thomas teaching. I taught theology for many years and then did some administration. And then the Holy See or the Vatican asked my superior if I could go to work in what is called the Secretariat of State, which is a section it had an English speaking section, that it had Polish, French, Spanish, German.
Yeah.
And that section deals with how the Pope works with all the churches around the world, his
Right.
trips, his meeting with bishops. And so I did that for a 5-year period before coming back to the University of St. Thomas as president.
And at that point, you weren't even a bishop yet, right?
No, I was a young
Okay.
priest. I went back again after being president here.
Yeah.
Then I was appointed a bishop by John Paul II, and I was made a secretary. It's like the number 2 guy in the ministry or the Congregation for Catholic Education, which oversees the Vatican's concern for Catholic education around the world.
Really? So you're sort of, what would it be more like you were in charge of most Catholic schools in the world?
Well, I was the number 2.
Okay.
And the congregation has not control, it has kind of oversight over 50 million kids in Catholic schools, over 1,300 Catholic universities, and so on.
Yeah.
And at that time, also over seminaries.
Okay.
When I was there, it was still had oversight over seminaries, and now that's been moved to another department.
Okay. So nowadays, we also see Catholic colleges, schools that really emphasize academics. And there's nothing wrong with that. But how do you think a school should balance Catholic academics with the Catholic faith?
Well, I think that the academics are really important, and that it's crucial that a Catholic university be excellent.
Right.
So it should be excellent in its academics, in different fields, and open to people who want that. And I think that feeds a good Catholic mission and identity, because you're right. A Catholic university should be intentionally Catholic,
Right.
Particularly in how it approaches the intellectual life, that
Right.
it uses all the great resources that Catholics have. Universities were founded by Catholics.
Right.
Really? Well, sure. In the Middle Ages, all the great universities,
Paris.
Oxford, Paris, Bologna, they were all Catholic institutions.
Really?
Sure.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
And so the birth of universities in the West is with the Catholic Church. And even in this country, a place like Harvard was founded as a religious, with strong religious convictions. Now the most well-known Catholic universities are, well, besides the University of St. Thomas, are Notre Dame and
Boston
Georgetown,
College.
Boston College. There's a number of them. Santa Clara. There's many universities that are well known.
Nowadays, it also feels like it's kind of like just a label, like, oh, well, that's a Catholic college. But when you think about it, it's like, oh, well, that's a sports school or that's an academic school.
Yeah.
You don't really think that's a Catholic school.
Well, yeah, that could be true. Some really are more, they tend to be smaller universities, but their Catholic identity is very pronounced. But a place like Notre Dame is still very Catholic. It's a big university, and everybody in the country knows that Notre Dame is a Catholic university.
Yeah.
They sure do. And so you can be great and be strongly Catholic. Some of the smaller Catholic colleges that were founded by religious communities maybe 100 years ago struggle. They struggle for students, and some of them have been tempted to water down a bit the fact that they're Catholic.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing.
Right.
And you have to be intentional.
Yeah. I took this class. I go to St. Thomas High School.
Right.
Archbishop stays at the University of St. Thomas. Very closely connected. My high school is Basilian.
Right.
University of St. Thomas is Basilian. One of the teachers, she talked to us about AI. And,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing now. Brand new question that nobody had to deal with even 5 years ago.
How would you go on about that?
Well, I must admit, I read a little bit now about AI and the how it's going to change how we learn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know really all the particular ways. I do know, for example, I use AI for some things as a research tool, but I
Okay.
know that I'm only scratching the surface of what it really can do. If it's true that AI could, in fact, I hate to use the term, but learn by itself and could learn things that are destructive,
Yeah.
that would be frightening. I don't know enough about how it really works, but there are enough voices out there that I trust
Right.
who seem to be putting up warning signs. Be careful. I also know that for now, even now in teaching, students, of course, have access to EI, and they could have EI write a paper for them.
Right.
And so now I've heard that some teachers are returning to the practice of having students.
Right on paper.
Yep, they'll do it. They'll do it in class,
Yeah.
because it's, although there are ways to trace down whether it's just too much of a burden for a teacher
Right.
to start doing that. So that we're going to have to figure out good policies to deal with it, but it's a brand new question.
Right.
Even 5 years ago,
Yeah.
there was no AI. When you started in 9th grade, there wasn't
Yeah.
AI.
Right. You're right.
And now it's there, and
It's grown so fast.
it's grown so fast, and it obviously has huge potential for good. I like it for. I use it as a kind of a super Google search.
Yeah. Really.
Well, you can enter something, and then it can pull up material for you to look at and use.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful, because it can replace. It could make us intellectually lazy.
Mm.
All the work is done for us. It's like calculators. We used to do, when I was in grade school, lots of mental arithmetic, spelling, things now that with calculators, we couldn't use calculators. Everything had to be done pen on paper,
Yeah.
or in your head. Same with spelling.
Yeah.
You had to learn 10 words a day and not just enter and have it correct everything.
Right. Today, one of my teachers, Miss Willie, she told me the exact same thing. She sees kids now, and they're not even they're not even trying to critically think.
Right.
And Miss McConnell, you know her really well.
I do know Miss McConnell very well.
I take her class scripture, and she always tells us, you can, as a teacher, when you've been teaching for so long, you can tell when someone's using AI.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of goes back to what you were saying. It can't replace a human.
It can't.
Theologically, how would you explain
Well,
that?
I think it can never, I don't think it can ever really, it'll never be able to think. It can always pull together material and lots of material very quickly and make something coherent. But that it could be something totally original that hasn't already been done, that's less likely. It is very helpful, though, for certain, it simplifies certain research tools. When I was doing a thesis, I went to the library and had to look through library cards to find sources. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Now some of that could be done in 5 minutes research.
Right. Which is a tool.
It's a great tool. Yeah. I remember doing an index for books that took hours and hours. You'd have 5x7 cards, and now you can, with a few steps, you enter it, it's done.
Yeah.
Those are, there have been great advances, but with every advance, there's usually something that is lost.
Right.
And you're right. Critical thinking is a big thing, that we learn how to evaluate the information that comes to us, because it's come from somewhere, and, from different voices. And can we identify its strengths and its weaknesses?
Yeah. Aquinas in the Catechism of the Catholic Church clearly tells us that what separates us from animals is that they act on instinct,
Right.
and we have our conscience, free will, natural law. It explains that pretty well.
Yeah. No, you're
What
right.
So as humans, we're very valuable.
Right. We're the apex, the high point
Yeah.
of creation, for sure.
What do you think that makes you really believe that AI won't ever replace that?
I don't think it can. I don't think AI, for example, can ever have a conscience.
It's something you can only attain from God.
I think exactly that. It's that's a power. It would be able to discern right from wrong from a lot of data that it has that has been identified as right or wrong. But that's not the same as conscience, being able to make a judgment based on prudence and the facts,
Right.
to say that I should or should not do this.
Okay. Bishop, we're getting kind of towards the end.
Okay.
And I kind of just want to ask you a question to help out the teens.
Okay.
If I had to ask you, you've obviously learned a lot of lessons through your life. You know so much. What is one of the biggest struggles you've had in your life? And you don't have to go into specifics with it.
Right.
And have you dealt with it? And what do you think you've learned that maybe you can tell teens now where they don't?
Right. I mean, I think one of the things is that we have to learn to put up with our shortcomings and deal with them gracefully, to acknowledge that we have gifts and we have areas that are, if not weaknesses, at least they're not gifts.
Yeah.
And that someone else might have. And we have to learn to, I think, develop those gifts that we have and not be envious or jealous or resentful because of those that we don't have. Because it's in a world in which so much is placed on how things look to others, and not just physically, but sort of, my life is going great. Look at all these pictures. Look at all this. That I think we have to learn to put a lot of that aside and deal with.
So your advice, staying out of social media?
My advice would be to limit social media a lot, and certainly be careful of comparing yourself to what's on social media and thinking that what people put on their social media sites is really all that accurate. Most people are presenting a version of themselves that they would like to be or they want other people to see. But we really get to know people when we see them face to face and interact with them. And so I think being content and grateful, thankful for what we have, is a great grace in life, because it saves us from that horrible vice of resentment and anger. Anger, which often is fueled by resentment that someone else has that I don't. And I think the more we can be free of that and live gratefully for what we have and not resent what we don't have, I think the happier we'll be.
Yeah. And they're called highlights for a reason.
Yep.
And finally, if you had to tell the teens watching this one thing, what would it be?
Give yourself some silence every day. Make sure that 5 minutes of silence, no background music, nothing. See if you can do it.
Not think about anything.
It would be wonderful, and then it'll grow on you. At first, it will be burdensome, and you'll be distracted and fidgety. But give yourself 5 minutes in which you kind of just be, and let the Lord, if He wants, stir up in you a thought, a response. He might or might not.
Yeah.
But if you don't give Him the chance, you're never really going to hear that still small voice. And so I would say, learn a bit of silence.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Archbishop Miller, thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you,
with us
Manrique.
today.
It's been a pleasure.
And finally, can you give the viewers a blessing?
Sure. Let's place ourselves in the Lord's presence, thanking him for who we are, for the gifts that he has given us. And may Almighty God in his goodness continue to bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys have a great day, and God bless all of you guys.
Thank you, Manrique. God bless y'all.